Well, it's that time again, episode 26. It's me, Chucky, from the forums, and as always, we've got G-Money Jigsaw.
It's your boy, Jiggy.
Now, we've got a fresh lineup of movies to discuss today. On the menu for today, we've got Malevolence from 2004. Starts off as like a heist-type movie, then turns into a full-blown slasher. Then we move on to The Penthouse from 1989, which is more of a TV movie, a thriller. Then we go to Fertile Ground from 2011, supernatural horror-type movie. Then we've got everybody's favorite Christmas movie. Well, maybe not everyone's. Jack Frost from 1997, about a mutant killer snowman. And then we finish things off with Slaughterhouse from 1987, which is a bit of a kind of like a Texas Chainsaw slasher type movie.
It's a true classic.
Yeah.
Malevolence. Like Chucky said, it starts out as much like a heist movie. There's a bank robbery gone awry. They meet up in this abandoned farmhouse area, but unfortunately, not that far away from the farmhouse is another house, and this house is not empty. There is a serial killer there, and the individuals being robbed sort of run amok of him. And there's some little character stuff going on in there, but that's basically the gist of it. This is a movie that generally has mixed feelings toward it, and I think it's understandable.
I thought it actually had quite good reviews, at least from people in the horror community.
Well, see, I've consistently heard mixed things about this one. I hear a lot of people calling it somewhat of a quote-unquote rip-off of Halloween, which I can see why. My personal feelings are that this is a decently suspenseful and generally pretty enjoyable movie at a certain point. It does take a while to get moving, in my opinion. Like the first 30, 35, maybe even 40 minutes, there's not really a whole lot of exciting stuff going on. But once it gets going, I think it's pretty good stuff. I don't know, it's a movie I've seen this once before. And I was hoping it's going to be as good as I remembered it, and generally speaking, I think it is. So, what are your feelings on this one?
I remember originally renting this out back when, video stores were around, and this was more of a new release, and I don't remember the slasher aspect to it. I always thought of it as like an abduction movie, like a serial killer abduction type movie. I just completely forgot about the killer with the sack and everything.
Now, did that make it better or worse when you...
It actually made it better when I rewatched it this time, because I kind of just forgot almost everything about it the last time. I don't even know if I gave it enough attention when I first watched it. But yeah, like you said, it is... It definitely has, whether it's ripping off Halloween or it's paying homage to it or whatever you want to call it, there's obviously some moments and music in the movie that certainly feel like Halloween. And then obviously the killer feels like a bit of a clone of Jason from Friday the 13th Part 2. I
was actually going to go with the town that dreaded sundown, but same idea.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could go with either. They both kind of wear a sack. And by the way, I like the sack look. It's simple, but it's pretty effective.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, even some of the actual scenes in the movie, the way they're shot, like even just when he's choking that one woman in the car, that just feels like something we've seen from these classic slasher movies. So. And even at the end, there's a door in the movie that just looks like it's painted like Freddy's sweater. So I'm not sure if that was like a reference to another classic slasher movie. I'm not sure, or maybe that was just coincidence. I don't know. But yeah, it's a movie that I was pretty mixed about how I was feeling about it halfway through, and then the second half really, once it turned into like more of a full-blown slasher, it certainly got a little more exciting for me. And while it doesn't quite get to the point where you can say this is a really good movie, I think it's certainly entertaining, especially for people looking for a slasher movie. I don't think too many slasher fans would be all that disappointed in it. It's just a matter of how much are you going to like it. And I thought it was decent.
Yeah, one thing that impresses me about this one is it's a decently low budget movie. I think estimated it's like $200,000, something like that. And you can tell when watching it that it doesn't, it's not like a really high quality glossy production, which I sort of think really worked in its favor. And you can even get like a sort of like a classic horror feel from this. And I think what also helps is the setting. This is sort of like a dark, disused house and factory type location, and I think that it wasn't like overwhelmingly large area of space, but I thought it was used quite effectively, especially toward the end with the whole scenes in the house. It's just some good stuff.
There's a funny part in the movie where I just thought it was funny where shortly after one of the criminals who gets shot, he dies, and they've just literally robbed a fucking bank, and they're saying like a prayer for this guy. I mean, it's kind of funny that criminals would say a prayer for someone after having done some bad shit.
What I think was actually the funniest about the scene is just the look the girlfriend gave the boyfriend. Just sort of a disdainful look. But I could buy it. There's some people who might do quote unquote bad things, but they might be very spiritual people. So I believe. One thing that sort of it doesn't necessarily bother me, but when I see this, I just think it was necessary. Toward the end, the horde comes off the antagonist's face, and we see who it is, and that's like a quick flashback, and like it just struck me as like unnecessary. Like I think we all knew, like, oh hey, this is probably the guy from the beginning. Like I don't know, like I don't know if people really expected it to be like a 60-year-old, 70-year-old guy just running around, but yeah.
I didn't really feel too much one way or the other about that. Yeah, I could have taken it or leave it. It doesn't really matter. I also kind of like the last 2 seconds, how they kind of I shouldn't really spoil it, but I mean we know what happens at the end there, so I like that they didn't go too far with it and made it a bit of a simple conclusion, but maybe a little cliched, but still, it works.
Yeah, I feel like I very often criticize how modern horror movies aren't the movies. Like, there's so many that just go like all out, oh my god, the killer's not dead. But this one I thought was a lot more subtle, and I have to, like you say, I appreciated it quite a bit more than a lot of the other sort of last second scares.
And it's quite surprising that the guy that makes these movies, because there's another 2 in the series, I believe.
Yes. And
I haven't seen those yet, but I did notice in the second one there was a couple of notable actors in it. I think there was Michael Biehn from the original Terminator. He's in that. He was one of the main characters in the Terminator, and I think it was Alexandra Daddario. She obviously she's really famous now, so quite surprising to see her in there. And I'd sure love to check out those titties. So I'll definitely watch the sequel for sure.
I have also not seen either of the sequels, but I've heard like genuinely positive things about them. So I'm hoping. I don't know if they'll be quite as enjoyable as this one, but because I think the second one's a prequel, and I don't know if I really want that, but hey, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the IMDb ratings last night, and the first and second have, I think, the exact same rating, and then the third one had kind of a bit of a higher rating. So it'll be interesting to see, if they actually are as good or better, or how they go.
I'll say this. There's a lot of horror, movies that have sequels out there that I don't really, want to see the sequels. Like Robot. Robot has, 4 or 5 sequels, and I think they're still making them, to be honest. And I don't want to see those. But I wouldn't mind seeing these. Because, even though it takes a while to get going, I think it really works once it gets going. And, like I said, I think the final product is pretty much a decent movie. Like I said, I've seen this one before, and luckily it stayed as a positive movie for me. I enjoyed it. Despite the slow beginning, I think it picks up nicely. And I really do like, even though rather it be rip-off or homage, I do like the little Halloween, little music things, and I enjoy that. And I also like the investigation toward the end when they're reading through their journal. I enjoyed that part too. So I'm going to give this movie, I had to think about this, I'm going to give this movie an 8. Which at first I thought, hey, that might be a bit high, but the more I thought about it, the more I enjoyed this one. And it's nowhere near a perfect movie, but I did quite enjoy this one, so I think an 8's okay.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty decent. I'm going to go with a 7, which I think is pretty fair. I'd say it's pretty close to your rating. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect from it because I couldn't remember most of it, and I was quite pleasantly surprised that it turned into a fairly enjoyable slasher movie as it progressed. And like I said, there's some scenes, whether you want to call it rip-off scenes or homages, whatever they are, it's quite enjoyable to see a more modern movie emulate some of those older classics in a decent way, rather than, a hack type of way. Yeah, so I was pretty happy with what I ended up getting, because I didn't have all that many high hopes for the movie. And I guess the only thing left to say, or the only other question I had about it is, what's wrong with ice cream from a gas station?
Well, I don't know if they don't do that in this trailer, but they do have just little ice cream, little freezer cooler type things in gas stations. At least some of them do. So you can just pick up some cheap ice cream. It's not like it's dispensed at the counter or anything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we do the same thing, but I've never heard of anyone really complain about ice cream from a gas station. So
yeah, I generally just forget it exists, to be honest.
I mean, what was she expecting? Like some expensive Baskin Robbins or something? I don't know.
That's some nice gourmet stuff.
Some of that Ben & Jerry's that costs like $20 for a small tub.
Hey, some of that Ben & Jerry's stuff is pretty good. I'll just.
Okay, well, she seems a little spoiled if she's complaining about ice cream from a gas station. I would have loved that shit at her age.
She did have a bad game though, so let's not be too hard on her. And she also had a pretty bad day after that.
Admittedly, I can't remember if it was her, but was she the one who struck out in baseball?
I'm going to say yes, because if she was a pitcher, I'm assuming that would be a good day.
Yeah, because as soon as I saw that girl struck out, I kind of went, "Huh, you suck," and I had no idea that was actually one of the main characters. So. I don't know. I guess I'm a bad person.
That's quality parenting, but
yeah. We'll move on to The Penthouse from 1989, which is a TV movie. It centers around the daughter of a wealthy record producer who lives on the top floor of their building, obviously, because it's a penthouse. And she's visited by an old friend who's just escaped from a mental facility. And I guess you could say he's got a bit of a unhealthy obsession with her. He ends up having to take her hostage to prevent her father and the law from getting inside and breaking them apart again, like they got broken up when they were much younger. Now, I've seen this twice now. I did watch it once. Might have been a year or two ago. I can't remember exactly how long. It would have been probably at least a year ago. And it's okay, I guess. It's a TV movie, which I think in itself makes it a bit limited in terms of violence and things like that. Even though I'm not sure exactly what this is rated, but it kind of feels like they're trying not to go too far in the movie. Like they want to keep a certain range of audience. So, I don't know. I feel like that might affect it a little bit, because there is a portion to the movie where it's just like, okay, they're both in this penthouse, and there's not really a whole lot going on. They're having conversations back and forth, and we see the cops from the other side of the road or wherever they're situated at, just discussing how they're gonna kind of resolve everything. And there's a few lulls throughout. I guess you could say it's a little dry at certain points, but overall it's an okay movie. It's something you could, I guess, kill time with, but it's ultimately forgettable.
I think for what this is, late 80s, decently low budget TV movie thriller, I think it's okay. The one thing I'll give it, I guess, a lot of credit for is that the guy who played Joey, David Hewlett, I thought he was pretty decent. You could really get the mentally unstable vibe from him. I think he did a pretty good job, and even though he wasn't, well, I guess he was violent at times, but for the most part, there's more emotional disturbance going on with him. At times I even thought he was somewhat sympathetic. Obviously there's some mental thing going on, he has no control over it. So, I don't know, it's just, I think he's the one, I guess, highlight of this. Otherwise, I think you're pretty much right. There's some okay parts in the movie, but, it's an hour and a half long, it's just sluggish. There's a few exciting scenes, but there's not that many. It's just forgettable. I can't imagine this making anybody's, favorite thrillers list. I just don't see it.
By the way, what's up with her name, Dinah? Was she conceived in a diner? Did her parents have a love of 50s diners or something?
I've got nothing. Maybe somebody was in the kitchen with her.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not spelled the exact same way as a diner, but it just, I don't know, it's, the name for some reason got on my nerves a little bit.
I also say this, I sort of liked, you sort of expected it to go the route of, hey, maybe the more aggressive route will fail and they have to listen to the negotiator, and maybe and quote unquote, maybe more happier, but it went a sort of route where they, past a certain point, they ignored the negotiator's advice and just went full-blown, hey, let's go shoot this guy. Which I thought, I wasn't necessarily expecting that. So I thought, it's not an amazing, twist, but I thought it was a little interesting. Apparently it was also based off a novel.
Okay. Yeah, he's a bit slick in the beginning with how he escapes from the mental facility and how he sneaks inside the hotel or whatever you call it. But the one thing that I kept thinking of was, obviously, it's the father who would have a concern with him being there, and with him being locked up in a mental facility. I'm assuming that her father, hasn't. I don't know. Maybe has told the people at the building, if this person with this name comes around, don't let them in. But if that was the case, I assume he would have also shown the security a picture of him or something. But so it to me, it didn't make a whole lot of sense that he would have to be so sleuthy with getting into the hotel, because he could have just said, "This is my name, can you ask her to, if she'll let me up?" Because she seemed quite excited to see him.
Yeah, I sort of wonder, given the guy's mental instability. So, what I got was, the guy was only in the mental institution for 3 years. like 3 years before the events of the movie, he killed a woman or something like that. So by that point, he had long lost touch with, Dinah and the family. I'm sort of wondering, maybe because of his mental issues, if he thinks the father had something to do with him being either captured or maybe just driven away. So I don't know, I feel like he probably suspects the father's like part of some conspiracy to keep him away from the daughter.
Well, he probably was.
Oh yeah, I mean, understandably so, to be fair.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain when he was talking to the father, and the father seemed to know that he was in the mental facility, because he was saying, you know where I'm supposed to be, or something like that. So it sounds like he did have some involvement, or at least he knew that he was locked away there.
Yeah, I guess I'm just somewhat surprised the daughter would hear about it somewhere, like even in a newspaper or something.
I like the well, it's hard to say what happens at the end without spoiling it. So, well, if you don't want to spoil it, just mute for the next 10 seconds. I really enjoyed the quick shot of him falling off the building. It's just funny. I tend to laugh a lot when I see people fall off buildings like that. There's another equally funny one, actually, even way more funnier. There's this movie, it was one of the Anna Nicole Smith sexy thriller type movies. I'm trying to remember the name now. But I did review it. It wasn't Skyscraper, it was the other one. Anyways, in that particular movie, right at the end, she like throws a CD at the guy's face, and and he does this epic fall off a bridge or something. It's fucking hilarious. Actually, I think I should have rated that movie a little higher now looking back at it, but that was pretty funny. Anyways, back to this movie. I had an okay time with it. It's a rather forgettable movie, but you can waste a bit of time with it, and it's got a few thrills, few suspenseful moments, but nothing too major. Like you said, there's an okay performance from its lead, from the guy, and I mean Robin Givens. She's a pretty attractive young girl at that time, so there's certainly a couple reasons to give it a go, I guess. But I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10, and I think that's fair.
I'm going to give it the exact same rating, and I'll just say, for what it is, I think it's effective. It's not really the type of movie I would generally watch, but it was still okay. I think it's still below average, but it's not like it's a terrible movie. I don't see myself watching it again anytime soon, but for a TV-made thriller, it's fine. 6 out of 10.
Have you ever been to a Penthouse?
No. I like the optimism, though.
I think I have once. I can't recall now. I'm losing brain cells, I think.
I was wondering if you drunk or dragged up to one or something. Next up is Fertile Ground from 2011. It's a somewhat, I guess, interesting plot. Basically, this pregnant woman has a miscarriage, a somewhat violent miscarriage, and she and her husband move out to the country, so she can sort of get away from the city, sort of, I guess, just find some peace after that traumatic event. And over the course of the next few months, some horrifying things happen, and is it ghosts and supernatural stuff, and oh god, there's more ghosts, and yes. I may not sound enthusiastic because I'm not. This one, I guess the movie's it's made okayish. I mean, but it's the plot is somewhat unique in that hey, it's it's somewhat unique, but generally, I thought a lot of the supernatural stuff going on was somewhat generic, and not much of it was particularly memorable. The ending too. I feel like it could have been okay if they just tweaked it a bit, but as it is, the final product just didn't wow me. I'm sort of curious what your thoughts on this one are.
I hadn't really heard of this movie until it was, nominated to discuss for this show, so...
I apologize.
And as you sometimes do before watching a movie you've never heard of, sometimes you go watch a trailer, which I did. And I thought the trailer looked a lot cheaper than what the final movie ended up being. So, in a way, I was kind of happy that the movie was a little more polished than what the trailer was showing. But at the same time, I think the movie's still a little generic. Like, it is the type of movie that you watch and you probably forget within a week. Just because, I don't know, we've seen some of this stuff before, and at the same time, there's not a whole lot memorable in it. I think the plot was, it was decent. At the same time, still nothing incredibly original, but, it's one of the earlier movies in this decade of supernatural horror that kind of took over the genre. I guess one great thing to say is, the director had a really good idea by putting tits in the first 5 seconds of the movie. 5 seconds in, I'm already checking out a pair. I'm like, this director speaks to me.
Are you into pregnant chicks?
Well, not necessarily, but she wasn't like 9 months pregnant, so she had a bit of a bump on her, but I can look past that. But I guess another thing, and this seems like such a insignificant thing, but the cheap looking title cards or titles or whatever you want to call them throughout the movie, they've kind of got they've segmented the movie into chapters or whatever with these titles.
I have a whole paragraph in my review over that. It's so stupid.
It is kind of stupid. Like, to be honest, it wasn't really needed for the movie. But even if it was, the titles being shown throughout are the exact same size and font of the main title. So, if I just put the movie on and wasn't told what the movie was called, is it called Fertile Ground? Is it called Starting Over? Is it called, any of these other titles that pop up throughout the movie? I don't know.
Moving in and Strange Happenings. And It also seemed like they stopped doing that, like, toward the second half of the movie.
Yeah. I remember, I think it was the final one that popped up. They played, like, this Insidious knockoff type music. Like, the music they played over the title sounded like a very similar but cheaper version of the main music that plays over the Insidious titles. And this, I think Insidious came a year before this one, so I'm guessing they kind of knocked it off a little, but I doubt that's a coincidence, but who knows, maybe it is.
So, I've actually seen this one once before. Let's just say like 8 years ago, I don't know, I'm just making it up. It's sometime within the past 10 years. Which makes sense because it came out 2011. And so I'd seen this one before, but I literally didn't remember anything about it. So as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, have I actually seen this? And I know I have, but none of it, like not a single bit of it was memorable. And after watching it, I see why.
Yeah, well, like I was saying, it's the type of movie that after a week you've kind of forgotten everything about it. Well, in your case, 8 years, or whatever that was. So, yeah.
I did notice one small pet peeve of mine, and that's just a very small scene in which the main lady is watching TV, and she just happens to be watching Night of the Living Dead. And anytime that movie pops up in like a low-budget horror movie, it just sort of bothers me. It's just like the only horror movie that's ever on TV in low-budget movies, just because it's in public domain.
Yeah. Yeah. They didn't want to pay to use any other movie. Yeah. I guess the other thing that I was going to mention, which I'm not sure if the movie did a great job at it, but the husband in the movie, who actually at times gave me this like Bradley Cooper vibe, but
No, it's fun. It's funny. I got like a Mark Ruffalo thing from him.
Yeah, maybe a combination of the two. But especially as the movie goes on, man, he becomes such a major dick.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell, like, because the movie's doing this thing where, okay, is he transforming into this other guy, or is she just seeing him as this other guy? So is he actually being a dick, or is she seeing him as a dick? I don't know.
I guess it's open to interpretation, which makes the movie a lot better.
Yeah, sometimes that makes a movie better. In this case, I would have actually liked to have known,
Yeah.
was that actually him? I have to assume it is. Like, I think he just kept getting fed up with how, all the problems she was having, but...
I guess one of my questions is, was he actually cheating on his wife with the one other woman, his agent?
Is she the one that gets thrown out the window?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, they were pretty close at that party, so.
Can you imagine having a party with your wife and you're just you're just letting this other chick kiss you and hit on you,
and on the lips too. So.
Yeah. That's probably not my husband of the year award.
No.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and rate this. It's forgettable, and that's the main problem. I can't imagine there's that much in this movie, aside from maybe the finale, that it's really going to stick with you, and I sort of doubt the finale will stick with you either. I mean, there's some okay acting occasionally, but it's nothing amazing. But I think the bigger problem is that the script is just so generic. So I'm going to give this one a 4.5. I'm just going to round up to a 5, I guess, to be generous. But it's definitely not a movie I would recommend.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5. I didn't think it was bad, just really forgettable and generic overall. I mean, there's a couple of okay scenes in the movie, but it really does nothing to, it just doesn't stand out. So, yeah, 5 out of 10 I think is pretty fair. So up next we've got Jack Frost from 1997. Which is about a serial killer who's on his way to being executed, but due to a transportation crash, he becomes genetically mutated and turns into a snowman. And then he's hellbent on getting revenge on the sheriff and the town that he was originally captured in. So yeah, I've seen this quite a few times. Not every Christmas, but maybe every 5 years or so I'll try, I'll put this one on and have a pretty decent time with it. It's if you go in expecting a pretty silly movie, you should be okay. I mean, it's about a mutant snowman, so I don't know what else you'd really expect. But yeah, it's the one-liners are pretty amusing from time to time. I wouldn't necessarily say it has all that many memorable deaths, but I mean, the deaths in the movie are okay. Yeah, there's just not... I just wouldn't say it's a movie that you're watching for gruesome kills. You're more watching it for the absurdity of the character, and which I think also, by the way, is voiced rather well. I believe it was Scott McDonald. At times, when he's doing that voice where he's really angry, gives me a little bit of a Brad Dourif vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously I appreciated that.
So this might be one of those movies that seems that it might be a bit too over the top for me, but I actually found myself enjoying it. And I had seen this one before, but much like For Tower Ground, it's been quite some time. I think I last saw this one when I was a teenager, like a young teenager, and back then I'm not sure why I thought about it, but I know that seeing it again, I thought it was really enjoyable. It's definitely not a high budget movie, but you can tell that the people in the movie had a lot of fun making it, and I think that really reflects well. And the whole setting, sort of a small town vibe type thing. I enjoyed it. There were a few scenes that were just a bit too goofy for me, and I probably could have done without some of the one-liners. But overall, I was happy with this one, and the whole ending I thought was sort of funny too. With the antifreeze, that sort of cracked me up.
Well, the funny thing about it is, obviously, I mean, the part where he's also dunking his child in it. I mean, it looks like he's almost trying to kill him and drown him in the antifreeze. I mean, you don't need to dunk his head all the way down. I mean, he didn't really have any snow on his head. So it was mainly just, on his coat and stuff. So probably went a bit far there, but yeah.
He's just trying to protect his kid who tried to kill him with antifreeze. So.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of the characters in the movie, they're okay. I mean, a little dull at times, I thought. I didn't really feel... I mean, the performances in the movie are suitable, I guess, but there's no real memorable characters in this outside of, I think, Jack Frost himself. So, they help the movie plot along, but it's really the snowman encounters and the silly interactions with him that really make up most of the entertainment in the movie.
And did you get some Shannon Elizabeth for all of you fans out there?
Yes, I am a fan.
I actually forgot, because she's laid in some of the American Pie movies. And I actually forgot it was the same girl until I saw her face and I'm like, hey, is that same individual? And as it turns out, it was. This is one of her earlier appearances, so that's, I guess, a little nice tidbit. And it's a pretty, well, I agree that most of the death scenes in this movie aren't particularly memorable. That scene has sort of generated... I still see people talking about that every now and again.
Yeah, I certainly didn't mind her in the movie. I mean, I guess the only other thing to comment on was just the different alternate versions of the Christmas songs being played in the movie. It was kind of fun. Playing some Christmas tunes on electric guitar, so I don't remember if there was more than one song, but I remember some Christmas tunes being played on electric guitar, and I thought that was kind of just fun to have alternate versions of those songs rather than just, ripping some old 60s song and playing them ad nauseum.
Yeah, I thought it gave a little like modern vibe to it. I don't think it like deeply made the movie any more enjoyable, but I sort of liked it.
Yeah, so Jack Frost, it's a pretty dumb movie, but as long as you're going in expecting to have a silly time with it, you're probably going to have some fun, I think. Jack Frost is voiced rather well, I feel, but the rest of the characters not all that exciting, except Shannon Elizabeth, for obvious reasons.
That's what Jack Frost thought, so...
So, yeah, I'm just going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a pretty decent movie. It doesn't quite become a staple of my Christmas playlist, but I'll put it on every now and then.
Yeah, I enjoyed this a bit more than I thought I was going to. So I enjoyed like a 7.5. I'll probably round that down to a 7. But it's pretty enjoyable. It has a fantastic introduction. It's a very low-key introduction, but I think it has sort of a charm to it. Like Jackie said, if you go in expecting a decently silly movie, you'll get it. And it's over the top at times, but it's not like too over the top. And if anybody's seen the second Jack Frost, that one might be a bit too over the top for me. But this one, I think it's decent. So I think a 7 out of 10 seems pretty okay.
It's been a while since I've seen the second movie. In fact, I think I saw the second movie first, which gave me kind of a bad impression, because I think the second movie is way lower budget.
Yeah.
But it'll be kind of interesting when I do choose to finally give that one a watch again.
Lastly, we have Slaughterhouse from 1987, which it's not necessarily a classic, but hey, it's from the 80s, so that's a good thing. Basically, the owner of this closed down slaughterhouse is facing some foreclosure issues, and he sort of wants revenge against the people he thinks are trying to kick him out of his house. And he has a mentally challenged kid named Buddy, who is quite a large fellow. And he basically uses his son to get revenge on these people, including the sheriff. And there's also some teenagers who happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they sort of get mixed into this too. This movie, I feel like I enjoyed it more than I was thinking I would. Because I've seen this once before. The first time I saw it, I had very lukewarm feelings toward it. I think it's because there's a bit of a comedic influence thrown in here. Sometimes that can be a bit much for me. But when I just watched it earlier today, it seemed to me that there wasn't really too much over the top comedy scenes. For the most part, it seemed like a quote unquote normal slasher movie. Sort of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre almost influence type thing, which I was happy with. None of the characters are particularly memorable, aside from maybe Barty, though I did like the father. But, I do think the kills generally are also pretty decent. So what's your history with this one? Have you seen this one a lot of times before?
No, this was the first time watch. It's been on my list as something to watch eventually, so I've certainly come across it, and being a bit of a gritty 80s slasher type movie, it's something that I eventually wanted to see. I didn't like it as much as I thought I could have, and I didn't have high expectations for it, but it just didn't really... I just thought I could have liked it more than I did. I don't know if disappointing is the exact word I should be using, because I wasn't expecting a lot anyways, but I just think a maskless fat hick slob that makes pig noises, it's not exactly at the top of interesting characters for me.
He looks pretty menacing though.
So, yeah, I mean, certainly you don't want this big dude swinging machetes or whatever type of bladed weapons that he uses. You don't want him doing that, but and I think the best part of the movie are some of the bloody kills. You see a few limbs chopped off, and some of the kills are quite bloody, so I don't think the movie will disappoint too much if that's what you're in it for.
No, the funny thing is, I actually think the most painful scene is that paper cut scene. Oh, well, not paper cut, but that that scene. I was cringing doing that. That looked painful.
No, I'd still go with the guy getting his hand chopped off. The deputy. But anyways, I like how we're comparing a little paper cut to a guy who dies from getting his hand chopped off.
But which is more painful?
Pain is temporary, man. So I would, considering one guy died and the other one didn't from that, from that cut, I think I'd rather go with the paper cut if it was me. Plus, you still get to keep your hand in the end. So
yes.
One thing that I did, that I thought was really terrible, and I don't know if this is just in the restored version. Did you watch the restored version?
I'm not sure. Well, let me just say it this way: the version I watched was not the original. I know that for a fact.
Okay, so it might have been the restored version.
Yeah.
There's a scene towards the end where they shoot at Buddy, I think, and the effect of the gun is so terrible. Like, not the sound, but the they've added some sort of digital effect that is just so terrible. It looks like it was made in Microsoft Paint or something, and they just put it on the screen. I mean, it flashes for like half a second, but it was just terrible. So I don't know if you picked up on that or not.
I did not. What I noticed, so there's a band by the name of Mortician. They do sort of like a very death grindish style of music, very loud death metal basically. And they formed, I think, in the late 90s, early 2000s.
I can sing a bit of the song for you if you'd like.
Okay, now, I actually do like Mortician. I enjoy the music, but I get that it might be repetitive. But I actually first heard about this movie through the Mortician song, because I actually have the CD the song is on. And of course it sort of samples to the movie. And so of course that's how I first got interested in seeing this one. So, and the movie, the version I saw actually ended with that song, which definitely wasn't in the original movie.
Yeah, so that I think that's a restored version, because
Yeah.
that was also in the one that I watched.
Which, I don't much care for that. I don't know why they... I don't know why you couldn't see the original one, but hey, whatever, it's fine. At least I got to see it. So, I don't know, I do sort of like... I do like the song, but I just sort of wish the song wasn't at the end of this movie.
I was a little surprised when I was watching the end of that movie, because I was thinking, geez, this feels a little more modernized for something that was made 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they're showing all these behind-the-scenes pictures with, as they're going through the end credits, and I don't know, just the appearance of it just seems so unusual for a movie from the 80s. And then I realized, okay, this was probably actually done more recently. Or added in more recently, I mean. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly how the original one, like the end credits, how they looked, but...
No, I'm wondering, because I really don't know. Was the opening so new, or was that original? Like showing the pig being slaughtered?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm just going to assume it's original, I don't know. But I sort of liked the opening showing like the sort of process it goes through. But I hated that music. I just hated it.
Yeah, the music was pretty stupid.
I could have... See, like, sometimes it just gets a bit much. And if they had just shown those scenes, I would, without any music, I probably would have been a lot more okay with it, making it look like sort of a grim, gritty type movie, and then throwing in some comedy later on, but they immediately just start with that music, and it just rubbed me the wrong way.
I don't think any vegans would have a great time starting this movie.
Yeah, I can't imagine so. It would just make them feel more vindicated. like they need to feel any more vindicated.
They would have yelled at the screen, "This is not right! I'm vegan!"
Meat is murder.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, because the killer is kind of like an animal lover, I guess, so...
Yeah, actually, that reminds me of a sort of a funny scene. I thought it was funny when the old guy was sort of yelling at the guy who runs like a new meat processing plant. Hey, you guys have like, what was it, 30% fat, 15% fat, something like that. And I sort of like later on he apologizes about that. I was like, oh hey, I understand profit margin, so I get it. I apologize. It sort of cracked me up that you have this like old hit guy talking about profit margin. And I don't know, I just sort of chuckled quite loudly at that.
Yeah. And I guess the only other thing that I'll mention is that even though overall I thought the movie was kind of there was one scene, it was such a simple scene, and just a scene where Buddy is, I think he's sitting down kind of just looking at like this flattened dead rodent. I don't know if it was a rat or whatever it was, I can't recall now, but just a small animal that's dead and flat. He's kind of playing around with it in his hands. For some reason that scene stood out to me, and that'll probably be like the one scene that I remember, 2 years from now. So I don't know why, but I don't know. I'm glad they just put that small scene. I mean, there's nothing really to it. It's just him sitting looking at it, but for some reason that did something.
Yeah, I think for me that gave him just like, it did give him character, but it gave him just a little more emotional depth than what we've seen. Like for the most part, he seems like this mindless guy. He has, obviously has big mental issues. So, that one scene we see, it's not like a bad guy, he's just, he has problems. So I don't know, I thought it was interesting. It did, leave a strong impact on me, but I agree. I sort of like how they threw that in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to. This is another one I had to think about for a little, because the first time I saw this movie, like I said, I was somewhat disappointed. I was lukewarm toward the whole thing, and this time I still had some issues with it, but I generally thought it was decent. So I think I'm going to go with a 7.5, and I'll probably round that down to an average rating, just a 7 out of 10. I feel like if you're looking for a movie that has decent kills, this movie would probably work. And it's a somewhat interesting movie, just not a great movie, and I can sort of see why I don't hear that many people talking about it nowadays.
Yeah, I'll throw it a 6. I was considering a 5, but I'll give it a 6. I do like some of the setting. I mean, I grew up on a farm, not exactly like this, but with some similarities. And I've even worked in factories earlier in my adult life. Or, well, a factory I worked in for 4 years that, was a meat processing place. So I certainly have some experience in what they were showing in the movie. But, I mean, Buddy's okay, he's menacing, but at the same time, like I was saying earlier, a maskless fat hick slob that makes pig noises. It's just, I don't know. The character itself still doesn't quite do it for me. So, but there are some decent bloody kills in the movie, if that's your thing. And I think anyone looking for kind of like this gritty 80s grindhouse type slasher movie, you could do okay with this movie.
Plus, you get some quality music at the end.
Yeah.
Hey, that's my favorite Mortician song.
How do you rate my cover of that song?
It needs some incomprehensible drums behind, but otherwise it's pretty okay.
Yeah. I mean, it may interest people to know that when I was a few years from my late teens, I actually was in a couple of different metal bands, and the only thing that I ever saved from any of those bands, and I was actually a singer in those, so
I literally had no idea.
slash guitarist, but mainly singer. The only thing I've kept from it is there was this one band that had some of my brother's friends in it, and they were looking for a singer. I think I was about 18, maybe 19 at the time, and they, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but they said come over and kind of audition for it, and I just went over to their house, and it's tough because as soon as I got there, they played like three minutes of whatever song they were making. They're just like, okay, so we'll just play it for you and then you sing to it. Like, so you don't have any lyrics or anything. You kind of have to make everything up yourself. And so the only thing that I actually kept over those years in terms of recordings or anything, because they actually recorded it like just on a cheap cassette player, so it doesn't have great production value or anything. But that's the only thing that I've kept, and I think I've got it online somewhere. I could probably find it, but I can tell you there's some epic screams going on there.
If you ever do find it, I am somewhat interested.
Yeah.
It might not be Mortician, but it might be okay.
Not quite. It's pretty hardcore, man. I think I've got it on SoundCloud somewhere, so if I do come across it, I'll just maybe I'll even play a few seconds of it in this episode at the end, just just so everyone can kind of hear how good or bad it was.